The sound of a doorbell or a sudden knock shouldn't feel like an attack. Yet for many of us, it does. That sudden jolt of anxiety that hits your chest the moment you realize someone is outside isn't a sign that you're a hater or a recluse. It is an instinctive, visceral resistance. You might find yourself tiptoeing away from the window or silent sinking your breath, hoping the person on the other side simply goes away. This isn't about being angry at society or holding a grudge against your neighbors. It's much simpler and more profound than that. You simply do not enjoy the intrusion of visitors. Your home is the only place where you don't have to perform, and a visitor represents a demand for a performance you didn't audition for. You value your quiet routine because it is the framework that keeps your life together, and you guard your energy because you know exactly how finite it is. If this sounds like your life, stop feeling guilty right now.
You aren't rude, and you aren't antisocial.
According to Carl Jung, this discomfort is actually a sign of a complex, healthy psychological process happening deep within your nature. It's not a flaw, it's a boundary. To understand why a guest feels like an energy thief, we have to look at how your brain actually works. Carl Jung popularized the terms introvert and extrovert, but modern culture has twisted them to mean shy versus outgoing. That was never Jung's point. He was talking about the movement of psychic energy. Think of your energy like a battery. An extrovert's battery is solar-powered. They need the sun of the outside world, social gatherings, and external stimulation to feel alive. But for you, the battery is internal. You recharge in the dark, in the quiet, and in the absence of others. When you are alone, you are finally plugged into your own power source. This is why your home is so much more than four walls and a roof. It is a sacred cocoon. It is the only space on earth where your psyche can stop reacting to outside stimuli and finally begin to balance itself. When a visitor crosses that threshold, they aren't just stepping onto your carpet, they are disrupting the invisible threads of your internal world. The moment another person is present, your brain forces you to activate what Jung called the persona. This is the social mask you wear to be polite, engaging, and normal. Even if the visitor is a close friend, the mere act of having them there requires you to maintain this mask. You have to monitor your facial expressions, keep up the conversation, and stay tuned in to their needs. This constant vigilance forces you to move away from your true self, the relaxed, unmasked version of you that exists in solitude. Hosting isn't just hanging out. It is an exhausting psychological necessity that drains your battery at triple the normal speed.
You don't hate the visitor, you hate the version of yourself you have to become to accommodate them.
This is why you feel that deep urge to protect your space. It is a survival instinct for your soul. When someone enters your home, you have to understand that they aren't just stepping onto your carpet or sitting on your sofa. They are crossing an invisible boundary into your most vulnerable psychological territory. Your home is the physical extension of your mind. It is the only place where you can truly let your guard down, drop the act, and just exist. Because of this, the moment a guest walks through that door, the stakes become incredibly high. Carl Jung identified a part of our personality called the shadow, the reservoir for everything we've pushed aside, the traits we don't like to admit we have, and the sensitive blind spots we aren't always aware of. When you are alone, your shadow is at rest. But the second a visitor arrives, their presence acts like a chemical reagent in a lab. They bring their own energy, their own loud opinions, and their own unconscious baggage into your sanctuary. Without meaning to, a guest can poke your shadow just by being themselves. Their voice might be too loud for your current mental state, or their casual judgment of your lifestyle might hit a nerve you didn't know was exposed. This is why you suddenly feel that inexplicable flash of irritation, or that heavy, desperate urge to ask them to leave. It isn't because they are necessarily doing something wrong, but because their presence is forcing your unconscious mind to deal with things you aren't ready to face yet.
This shadow response is actually a sophisticated defense mechanism. That feeling of being invaded or suffocated by a visitor is your unconscious mind sounding an alarm to protect your inner integrity. We often mistake this for being moody or mean, but Jung would argue that it's your psyche's way of saying it has reached its capacity. Your shadow knows that you need silence to process the raw data of your own life, the stresses of work, the complexities of your relationships, and the quiet growth of your soul. When a visitor interrupts that process, they are effectively stopping your internal software update. The irritation you feel is a protective wall being built by your mind to prevent a total emotional burnout. It is an internal whisper telling you that your private space is currently under maintenance and no outsiders are allowed in. Honoring that feeling isn't an act of coldness or a sign that you are a bad friend. It is a profound act of courage. It takes strength to prioritize your psychological health over social expectations. By acknowledging that your shadow needs the door closed, you are finally learning to listen to your soul's requirement for stillness. You are choosing to be whole rather than just polite. And in the long run, that is the only way to maintain your mental and emotional sanity. In the world of Jungian psychology, your house is never just a collection of wood, brick, and mortar. It is a living, breathing symbol of yourself. Jung believed that the structures we inhabit are direct reflections of our internal landscape. When you look at your home, you aren't just looking at decor, you are looking at your own psyche materialized. Every room in your house represents a specific layer of who you are. Your bedroom is the sanctuary of your intimacy and your dream life. The living room is where you maintain your social mask. The kitchen represents how you provide yourself with emotional nourishment, and the basement or attic often symbolizes the dusty, hidden corners of your unconscious mind. Because your home is so deeply intertwined with your identity, your front door becomes far more than just a piece of hardware. It is the psychological boundary, the thin line between your true essence and the foreign energy of the outside world. When someone stands on your porch, they aren't just asking to enter a building, they are asking to step inside your mind. This is precisely why a visitor's presence can feel so incredibly jarring and disruptive to your peace. If you find yourself recoiling at the thought of a guest, it's often because your inner house is currently under construction. Life is a constant process of building, repairing, and renovating your psychological state. There are seasons where your inner walls are bare, your emotional wiring is exposed, and you are doing the heavy, messy work of healing old wounds or discovering new parts of yourself. In these moments, your psyche is fragile. Having a visitor enter during this time is like inviting a stranger into a construction zone. They get in the way of the work, they track in dirt from the outside world, and they force you to stop your progress just to accommodate them. When you feel that desperate need to keep people out, your soul is telling you that the environment isn't ready for an audience. You need the doors locked so you can finish the internal work without interruption or judgment. Protecting your home is not a sign of weakness or social failure. It is the ultimate act of protecting your healing process. You have to realize that you aren't isolating yourself in a negative sense. Instead, you are practicing a form of spiritual maintenance. By keeping your space private, you are honoring the temple where your soul resides. Your home is the only place on earth where you don't have to be a version of yourself for anyone else's benefit. It is the laboratory where you mix the ingredients of your life until you find balance. When you say no to a visitor, you are actually saying yes to your own growth.
You are declaring that your inner peace is more important than a polite social obligation. This isn't about shutting the world out forever. It's about recognizing that you cannot truly welcome others until your own inner house is stable, warm, and ready to be shared. Until then, keeping that door closed is the most honest and self-loving thing you can do. We live in a world that is obsessed with noise, from the constant ping of notifications to the cultural pressure to be on and available 24/7. Society treats extroversion as the only path to success and happiness. We are taught that if we aren't networking, socializing, or opening our doors to others, we are somehow failing or falling behind. But deep within your psychological DNA, there is a counterforce to this madness, the hermit archetype. In Jungian psychology, an archetype is a universal energy or a, quote, blueprint for a way of being. The hermit isn't a lonely or broken figure. He is the wise seeker who carries a lantern through the dark, quiet forest of the mind. When you feel that overwhelming urge to turn off your phone, close your curtains, and ignore the doorbell, that isn't your, quote, laziness speaking. It is your inner hermit calling you back to your core. This archetype knows something the rest of the world has forgotten. You cannot find your own light if you are constantly blinded by the neon glare of everyone else's expectations. It is crucial to understand that the hermit's withdrawal is not about escaping life. It is actually about engaging with it on a much more profound level. Most of our daily social interactions are superficial. We talk about the weather, the news, or mundane work tasks. This constant chatter creates a layer of mental static that drowns out your own intuition. By choosing solitude, you are effectively clearing the signal. You are stepping away from the loud and available culture so you can finally hear the whispers of your own soul. Carl Jung famously noted that loneliness doesn't actually come from a lack of people around you. It comes from being unable to communicate the things that truly matter to you. You can be in a room full of visitors and feel completely alone because you are stuck behind a polite mask. But when you are alone in your room, in that deep, sacred silence, you are no longer lonely because you are finally back in the company of your true self. You are giving yourself the space to process your thoughts, feel your emotions, and integrate your experiences without someone else's energy interfering with the process. Choosing to follow the path of the hermit is a radical act of resistance. You are standing up to a frantic, superficial world and saying, "My inner life is worth more than this social obligation." The hermit carries a lantern because he is looking for the gold hidden in the darkness of the unconscious, the creative ideas, the solutions to your problems, and the deep peace that only comes when you stop running. When you guard your solitude, you are protecting the fire of that lantern. You are allowing yourself to recharge so that when you eventually do decide to open the door, you aren't coming from a place of depletion and resentment. You are coming from a place of fullness. This retreat is a form of spiritual and emotional maintenance. It is the wisdom of knowing that in order to be present for the world, you must first be present for yourself. So, the next time you feel the urge to stay behind that locked door, don't apologize for it. Honor the hermit. Trust the lantern. You are not losing your connection to the world. You are strengthening your connection to the light that will guide you through it. Mastering your boundaries is not just about keeping people out. It is the ultimate act of self-love and the highest form of self-respect you can practice. In a society that treats busyness as a badge of honor and constant availability as a requirement, reclaiming your personal space is a revolutionary move. You have to understand a fundamental truth. You owe absolutely no one an explanation for needing time alone. You don't need a good enough excuse. You don't need to be sick.
and you don't need to have a mountain of work to justify closing your door. Your desire for solitude is a valid, standalone need. When you start to explain yourself or make up stories to justify your absence, you are unintentionally telling your own psyche that your needs aren't important enough on their own, but they are. By standing firm in your right to be alone, you are teaching the world how to treat you, and more importantly, you are teaching yourself that your mental health is a non-negotiable priority. To truly master this, you must become an expert at reading your own internal dashboard. Your body and mind are constantly sending you signals that your social tank is running on empty, but we often ignore them because we don't want to seem rude. You need to start paying attention to the early warning signs. The sudden onset of mental fog, where you can't quite follow a conversation. A subtle wave of irritability when someone asks you a simple question, or a deep, heavy fatigue that sleep doesn't seem to fix. These aren't just random moods. These are your system's emergency lights flashing. This is your psyche screaming for a break. When you feel these signals, the most powerful thing you can do is respond by slowing down immediately. Don't wait until you've reached a total emotional meltdown to set a boundary. The moment you feel that jolt of anxiety at the thought of a visitor, recognize it as a clear instruction from your soul to retreat and recover. The key to long-term peace is learning to communicate your boundaries with absolute clarity and zero guilt. We often overcomplicate things by being vague, which only leads to more pressure from others. You don't need a 3-page letter. A simple, direct statement is far more effective. Saying, "I'm staying home today, I need time for myself," is a complete sentence. It is honest, it is firm, and it leaves no room for negotiation. People who truly value you will respect that honesty because they want the best version of you, not the depleted version. And for those who don't understand, that is their journey, not yours. You aren't responsible for managing other people's reactions to your healthy boundaries. Your only responsibility is to protect the integrity of your own energy so you don't end up resentful and hollowed out. By honoring your longing for retreat, you aren't shutting yourself off from the world in a cold or permanent way. You are actually performing essential soul maintenance. Think of it like a professional athlete resting between games or a phone being plugged in to charge. You aren't quitting, you are preparing. When you allow yourself to stay behind that locked door and fully embrace your sacred silence, you are clearing away the psychic debris of the outside world. You are letting the social dust settle so you can see your true self again. This ensures that when you do finally decide to step back out into the world, you aren't doing it out of obligation or fear. You are stepping out as your most authentic, energized, and vibrant self. You will have something real to give because you took the time to fill your own cup first. In the end, well-guarded boundaries don't keep the world away. They make your time with the world infinitely more meaningful. We've walked through the silent corridors of the psyche, from the sacred silence of the home to the wisdom of the inner hermit. If you take away just one insight today, let it be this: your need for solitude is not a defect, it is a vital part of your psychological health. By choosing to keep your door closed when your energy is low, you aren't being rude, you are being honest. You are acknowledging that your inner world is a territory worth protecting, and that your house is a sanctuary that belongs first and foremost to your soul. Carl Jung's teachings remind us that the journey toward becoming our true selves happens in the quiet moments of reflection, far away from the noise of the crowd. When you respect your boundaries, you stop being a servant to social expectations and start being the master of your own peace. Your home should be the one place on earth where you never have to wear a mask.
Embracing your introversion or your need for retreat is a radical act of self-love that allows you to heal, grow, and eventually return to the world with a heart that is actually full. Remember, the world doesn't need more people who are exhausted and available. It needs people who are grounded, authentic, and at peace with themselves. Honor the silence, trust your instincts, and never feel guilty for choosing your own company. Your soul knows exactly what it needs to thrive. Sometimes it just needs you to lock the door and breathe. If this message resonated with you, it's time to stop apologizing for your nature. Take that first step toward inner balance today. Whether it's turning off your phone for an hour, politely declining a visit, or simply sitting in your favorite room in total silence, give yourself permission to be unavailable. What is one boundary you're going to set for yourself this week? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the psychology of the self. Your journey to becoming whole starts with the courage to be alone.